What's going on, nerds? Welcome back to Comic Book Nerd Nation, episode number 82. I'm Fox2. We got Topher
Hello.
and the whole mother effing Brian.
Greetings.
We've got Topher, but not his money because he blew it all yesterday at Derby City Comic Con.
Yeah, that's one of the things we're definitely going to have to talk about today, for sure. Pirate couldn't be with us. He had some seriously technical difficulties. Something was going on with his mic, and he sounded like Johnny Five the robot or something.
It wasn't even his normal Megatron.
No.
He was like doing bodily functions in binary or something. It was
it was very strange.
Was odd.
It sounded like those alien robots from Matrix. Like fucking having sex or something. I don't know.
Oh, I'm
It was
sad I missed
strange.
it.
Yeah. So let's jump right in and talk about what we've been reading.
Okay.
I'm excited. I'm going to go first, actually. I'm excited. I'm excited
After that
because
brief
for
pause.
the first time in the last
Screw you guys, I'm
3
going
to
first.
4 episodes, I actually have something to talk about that I've completed. I've been trying to read Rise of the Third Army for a fucking month now, and I just haven't had the time to sit down and make a lot of progress on it. So hopefully in the next week I'll be able to finish that. I'm about halfway, a little more than halfway through it. But I did get off my lazy ass and make it out to the comic book store, and I purchased this guy, which is going to be backwards on the video, but I don't care because it's a badass looking cover. Batman
Just turn it
Earth
around, then it
1.
won't be backwards anymore.
Yeah, I'll just...
Yeah.
Batman Earth 1 Volume 2, written by Jeff Johns. This is incredible. It is well within my top 5 favorite Batman books, stories, whatever you want to call it. It picks up right where Batman Earth 1 Volume 1 left off. I'm not going to spoil anything about the story because this is a really new book. It did just come out a couple of weeks ago. So if you haven't gone out and got this yet, it is absolutely worth it. My one complaint is the price point. The book retails for $24.99, which you can see how thick it is kind of a lot, but the quality of the book, it's hardback, it's the pictures are all really, the art is really nice, the colors are really vibrant, and the paper in it is the thicker, almost textbook kind of material. So the quality is kind of what you're paying for, but the story itself is amazing. I would probably pay $25 for this, even if it was paperback, just a standard comic. Jeff Johns has written an incredible story between the two books. If you're not familiar, to kind of give you an idea of what it is, without giving away the story itself, the Earth 1 Batman is kind of a reimagining, a retelling, if you will, of the beginning of Bruce Wayne becoming Batman. It's the same conceptually, but different. There are things that are exactly the same as you know and love. There's Batman Earth 1 Volume 1 that I actually let Topher borrow.
Not backwards.
Not backwards. So this one is a little bit thinner than that one also. But
It's the motion in the ocean, not the size.
there's things that are exactly the same to the Batman universe that you know and love, but there's specific aspects that are significantly different than anything else you've ever seen. One being Alfred. I can tell you this without screwing up the story. The version of Alfred in this is notoriously a badass. He's a little bit younger. He's still gray-haired. I think he's an Special Forces Marine or something to that. British Marines or British Special Forces. Something to do with that. But he's a total hard ass. It's really cool the way that they portray him in this.
And we know how Fox loves a nice hard ass.
I do like a nice hard ass.
My favorite part in that first volume is when Bruce steals his fake leg.
Yeah. Gosh, I can't say enough about this. I'm excited. They definitely left it in a good place to continue on for a volume 3, which Brian informed me is something that they're planning on doing on a yearly basis. Isn't that what you said?
Yeah, I think the Earth 1 books they're trying to do on a yearly basis.
I just my number one hope is that they don't pass it off to somebody else. I would like to see, make this 5 volumes, make it 6 volumes, whatever. Have a definite end to the run, but let Jeff Johns write it throughout. Hell, let him write it all now and publish the shit over the next 7 years, 10 years, whatever. But I'm hooked, and I really don't want them to give it to anybody else.
I agree.
So
it's pretty cool. His take on Batman for this is pretty neat.
I think one of my favorite things about it is like they portray a Batman kind of like Batman Year One by Frank Miller, where Batman's not perfect. He's making mistakes because he's still figuring out how to be Batman. He's still figuring out how to be a detective. He's still learning how to solve crimes and fight enemies. And
he's a giant noob.
Yeah, and that's the Batman that they portray in this. But you can kind of see him developing into what we all know and love as Batman. And another neat aspect of it is in the artwork. They did a fantastic job in the artwork. Let me see if I can find a picture of a close-up of his mask.
This Batman reminds me of the kids who get Call of Duty or Battlefield on Christmas and jump in and play and are running around the map shooting the air or shooting the ground.
Yeah, they have no idea what they're doing. Okay, so this is a picture. This is a couple panels from early on in the book, and you can kind of see that his mask is like, it's not the rubberized version of the mask. It's not an armor type suit that he's wearing. It's like spandex, and it's like stitched together, and it's definitely gives you the feeling of like he's still kind of figuring out what the best way to do this whole thing is, which is what I really like about Jeff Johns' take on it. So I've gone on long enough. If you haven't read Volume 1, make sure you read that and then go buy this immediately, because they're both incredible. I highly recommend them.
Nerd boners.
Definite nerd boner. Brian, what have you been reading, man?
This week I picked up Old Man Logan #2, the run for the Secret Wars, and I'll start with the only complaint I have is it seems too short, but to me, I love the
That's
first,
what she said.
Yeah, but it's the motion in the ocean, not how big it is. You got to work it. But yeah, that definitely.
Totally.
I lost my train of thought.
And that's all I
Totally
got.
just derailed his train of thought. Old Man Logan, it's too short.
It's
like the 1990s.
It seems a little too short, but I like the story. I love the original story by Mark Millar, I believe.
I thought was Miller doing it, or was that Grant Morrison?
No,
it was after Morrison. Yeah, it was Miller.
And it's in the whole concept of Secret Wars, this story, and this issue had him climbing over his territory's boundaries, and he happens to stumble into the Age of Apocalypse country, if you will say. And he sees all the X-Men that are there, and he's like baffled. He thinks it's fake. He thinks people are fucking with him, because obviously these countries don't know the other countries exist on Battle World. And yeah, I love that cover. Old Man Wolverine face to face with normal Wolverine.
Let me pull that. Okay. Yeah,
even though he doesn't do that in the book itself, but it's pretty good. I like it. I like the character of Old Man Logan. He's weathered. He's fucked up from his past. Go and read the first story that has nothing to do with Battle World that came out several years ago. It's amazing, and he's just like, and you could understand the books better. But I think I love the character of Wolverine, he's been through a lot. He has a lot of he's a lot of, I guess, I don't know how to put it. But, this Wolverine's all fucked up. He's like
old and grizzled because
yeah.
He's from his timeline, like all the heroes are pretty much dead and the world's split up into territories and run by the different supervillains of the world.
And the supervillains fucked with them while they were taking over and made him think the X-Men were enemies, and he slaughtered all his friends. So when he gets into the Age of Apocalypse, he's like, holy shit, who's fucking with me? These are all the people that I killed and were my friends. And it's a really good book. I love the character of Old Man Logan, and I'm glad that after Secret Wars is over, they're putting him into their new normal continuity. Nice. So I suggest the Old Man Logans for Secret Wars science.
Is that the only thing that you've been reading?
So far, that's the only thing I've read this week, I think. Yeah, it's the only thing I got to read.
Sounds like Topher's neighbor is mowing his lawn again.
Oh, motherfucker. Yes, he is. I figured Brian was going to talk about these guys that came out.
Oh, I picked up Son of Batman. That was good. I'll give that to Chris.
Is that
I haven't read them yet.
Justice League title in the right?
Yeah, new Justice League of America #1 came out this week.
They priced that shit up.
I'm not huge on. I don't know. I'll probably give that one a shot, but I'm not a big JLA fan. I'm not. I don't know why. I just have never been able to really get. I like Justice League, but the JLA titles for some reason just don't really grab my attention as much. I don't know what the difference is. I think probably due in part to the fact that prior to New 52, I never really read Justice League at all. I was reading more Marvel stuff at that point, and more solo titles like some Batman, a little bit of Superman, just kind of dabbling around, kind of finding my interests and whatnot. But when when New 52 started, I started reading Justice League from #1, and Jeff Johns was writing it.
Yeah, you were spoiled because Jeff Johns was writing it.
And it was fucking incredible. And it just, the way that they did those first 8 issues where it kind of featured each one of the Justice League and kind of put them in a spotlight, had a badass cover art for each individual. And even, I even remember, I still have them, even Aquaman looked fucking sweet. It just...
it showed them coming together, and their first enemy was Darkseid, and they beat the shit out of them. And even some of the heroes, when they're first coming together, beat the crap out of each other.
Yeah, it was a fucking awesome storyline.
Pre-New 52 was, different secondary heroes for Justice League of America.
Right.
The New 52, it seems like the first story, it's all the Justice League heroes. A secondary Justice League book. And I'm sure Chris will tell us more because he read it. We didn't.
No, he didn't read
it. No, he totally didn't read it. I read a lot of shit this week, but I did not read that. But yeah, this past week was
X-Men week again.
Well, no, it was the week that
X-Men week number 712.
No, DC put out a lot of their new #1s that they were planning after their move to the East Coast, San Francisco, LA. Where did they go?
Somewhere over there.
Yeah, but the other one I picked up was Black Canary, just because it looked interesting, but I haven't read that one yet either. But yeah, a lot of the new #1s for DC are started coming out last week. So
nice. I'm gonna have to get on some of those.
When this episode is released, the We Are Robin title comes out that I'm really interested in. That one looks pretty cool.
Is the comic book store open today?
No. Yes. They're open. Yeah, our local store is open today, but not tomorrow. They're closed on Mondays, I think. But yeah,
shit!
Damn, I'm gonna have to go. I may have to run over to the comic book store and pick up the JLA and the Batman and Son or whatever it is, Son of Batman.
Robin and Batman.
Yeah.
So this was the stack of comics that I read this week.
Damn, getting busy.
Well, and then those are the ones I read in paper, and then I read another twice that in digital. So I'm still on my mission here to catch up on on Marvel. So basically, this week was Axis. Or at least the first half of it. I'm not done with it yet, because I read like all of the Magneto series leading up to it, which was actually really freaking good. Cullen Bunn writes it, the guy who was writing the Sinestro series for DC,
which is an awesome series.
He in this, basically Magneto was part of Cyclops's Uncanny X-Men, you know, like the revolutionary group that was in hiding after Cyclops sort of accidentally killed Professor X, and Magneto then decides to strike out on his own because he's kind of pissed at Cyclops, because ever since the Phoenix Force like left, everybody's powers have been kind of dwindled a bit. So Magneto strikes out on his own and decides, screw this, I'm going around, like not enough's being done, and he decides to basically become the mutant Punisher. He goes around like trying to find everybody who has committed crimes against, you know, mutant kind, and he's going to go around and basically just slaughter all of them. And but there's also a bit of like a moral struggle in there, you know, like am I better than the people, you know, because I mean, having survived a you know, Nazi concentration camp, you know, he never compares himself to Hitler. It never like jumps the shark like that or anything, you know. But there's the constant, you know, struggle of, am I better than those people who put themselves above other people, you know, or am I just doing the same thing? So it was a really interesting series, but it was I mean, it's still going on now with his last days in Secret Wars. But the first dozen issues or so take you up to Axis, and then I also read the newest X Factor series, because that plays into Axis a little bit, but also just because I wanted to read that series. It was pretty good too. Basically a team of like Gambit and Polaris and Quicksilver, and then Cypher and Warlock join up under a corporate sponsored team to go, you know, do different, but the book had a different feel to it. It was like a, you know, a mutant X team basically, but, you know, like sort of put together under different circumstances. So that one was kind of interesting too. Which brings me to Axis. This book got a lot of bad press. I think, Brian, you said you didn't really care for it, right?
It was all right, but like I just saw like how it ended just seemed like kind of like a throwaway story, because it ended right.
Yeah. I haven't read the end yet. I haven't gotten to the end yet. I'm like 5 books in out of 9, I think. But it started out really cool. I'll be honest, like the first 3 books of it, I loved. Yeah. Basically, you've got Uncanny Avengers. Rick Remender's Uncanny Avengers was kind of the lead up to it, where the Red Skull has he's dug up the body of Charles Xavier, cut out his brain and implanted it into his own somehow, so that he basically gains control of Professor X's mental, you know, telepathic abilities, and he starts his own like mutant concentration camp and decides that he's going to cleanse the world of mutants because they're a disgrace to the purity of the human genome. So Magneto and Deadpool actually are probably 2 of the series that tie into this the most, and those are like 2 of my favorite characters. So I really love the way that this one started out, because Magneto ends up finding out about, you know, this concentration camp for mutants on Genosha, and goes over there, and he and a couple of the Avengers take on Red Skull, and they beat him, and he's like lying there on the ground, and Magneto's like, yeah, nope, fuck this, can't let him live, and just fucking crushes Red Skull. And of course the I don't know, the explosion of latent psionic energy or whatever ends up creating the Red Onslaught, which is like, if you remember back from the mid-90s, the Onslaught saga, which was like Professor X's telepathy powers, like trying to take over Magneto's brain, and all of Magneto's hate amplifying the psionic energy and created this giant freaking monster called Onslaught. Well, now we have Onslaught as the Red Skull. And
don't they call it the Red Onslaught or something?
The Red Onslaught, yeah. So there's Red Onslaught, and he's kind of a badass, actually. And it was like the imagery was really cool. The artwork in the first few issues was awesome. You've got X-Men and Avengers and Magneto even all teaming up to try and beat this this guy, and it turns out they can't. They're not really sure what to do here, because he's also got a couple of Tony Stark's hero hunting Sentinels from Civil War.
Yeah, I don't remember them.
Yeah, I don't really either, but I don't know. Maybe
him talking about them, but
it might have been after that when he was like Secretary of Defense with the whole initiative thing. Like he might have had him. I don't freaking know. Or he might have been making it up and saying that he had those all along and we just haven't seen him before. I don't freaking know. They do that shit in comic books, but pretty much make shit up and say, yeah, like he did this years ago. You've just never seen it before. We're going to give legitimacy to it by claiming it's been around since a famous story you loved and read. But anyway, like it ends up being really cool up until like the end of book 3, where to stop the Red Skull,
this is great.
Doctor Doom it starts out as Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange, but Doctor Strange gets taken out. So Doctor Doom steps in for him, and they weave this like the spell that's a mix of chaos and order to try and flip, Red Skull's like alignment axis upside down, because Rogue senses that Charles Xavier's psyche is still, awake somewhere and trapped inside Red Skull. And they're like, if we can suppress Red Skull and bring, Professor X to the surface, then we can stop this. So they cast the spell, and it works, but in the process, it ends up inverting everyone else who's present. So now you have heroes acting like a bunch of jerks, and you've got villains acting like good guys, because Magneto sees that this isn't going well, and Magneto's like, fuck this, your Sentinels can attack heroes? Well, I'll go get a team of villains. And he comes back and assembles this team of villains. It's actually kind of badass with like Carnage, and
that's what I like.
Dr. Doom, and and so now you've got all these villains acting like heroes, and the heroes acting like villains. But the thing is, up until this point, the story was freaking awesome. I loved it. And then all of a sudden, like, they didn't really explain that inversion, because at the end of that book, everybody's still acting like they're still acting somewhat normal after the fight, and then they go their separate ways, and then you start reading tie-in issues, and everybody's acting all weird, and you keep thinking, wait, did I miss the issue where they really explain this? And you didn't. You're just supposed to figure it out, and like I just wish it would have been stated a little, spelled out a little more clearly. And then it's weird. Okay, so for an issue where I think Adam Kubert was drawing it, one of the Kuberts, for the first few issues, and then it switches to Terry Dodson. And I like Terry Dodson's art. If you don't know who Terry Dodson is, he's done a few things. He's the guy who's drawn the current Princess Leia series for Marvel too. I like his art style, but it's different. It's a little more cartoonish. And so it didn't really fit this story, I didn't think. Suddenly you've got these heroes that are acting like, villains, and just the way they're drawn, it just seemed a little too silly. Like they were taking it over the top. Like it just, I don't know. It started, it was like they started off really strong, and then they kind of hit the climax, and then it's just like coasting through something else now.
It's all downhill after the climax.
So I read, like the, I read the Inhuman series, actually.
Second climax.
I read the Inhuman series actually too, which ties into this a little bit, and that's actually been really good, and the art and that's been fantastic. The Carnage had a little mini series in it for him being a hero, which was kind of funny, like seeing him like. He's going around and he sees a situation, and you see this mental image of how he just like butcher everyone and like serve them to their family for dinner and shit. And then he's like, nope, that was the old me. And then he jumps in and tries to do the heroic thing, but he'll end up like just freaking like some lady's getting mugged, like purse snatched or something, and he goes and he just like flays this dude, and like she's terrified. He's like, what? I just saved you. You should be thanking me. And he's like, maybe I did it a little overboard. How did they do this? It was kind of funny watching Carnage try to be a hero. That was kind of funny. But some of the other tie-ins, like Captain America and the Mighty Avengers, it's like the Avengers basically being
douchebags,
a bunch of douchebags.
The
exactly.
Falcon's like an asshole. Yeah,
like it's just too over the top. It's not even necessarily good. It's like, we get it. They're backwards, but like the villains.
It's like a gimmick.
No, it's just
right,
because
just checking.
Because they're not doing it to affect something else. They're doing it for the sake of this. They're trying to do. That's the story they're trying to tell. The story just isn't that good.
It's just a bad story.
I mean, like, a lot of it is really good, and the villains, I liked it because you get some inner monologue from like Doctor Doom in Avengers World, talking about how he's how the old him, and how he was wrong all along, and like there's a little bit more complex stuff going on upstairs, comparing their new life to their old life, whereas the heroes all just act like a bunch of unidimensional jerks. It's so. We'll see how it finishes up, but
the two things I like that came out of it is, one, Sabretooth becomes like good, and he was the only character I liked good, and then Baby Apocalypse becomes full grown.
Yeah,
badass Apocalypse.
Evan Genesis turns into Apocalypse, which is pretty freaking awesome. Because Apocalypse has been dead for a while, kind of gone. Yeah. Well, see, that comes out of Rick Remender's Uncanny X-Force run too. So,
which I think is one of my favorite X-Men titles in like the past how many years?
Yeah, I hadn't actually read it, but I'm gonna have to go back and read it now because it's I keep hearing it was pretty damn good, but I love the fact that parts of the story of the first few books were told from like different characters' point of views. Like you get a little bit of Iron Man.
Yeah, I like it when writers do stuff like that.
You get a little bit of Iron Man, and I'm like, oh my god, please, not another Marvel, company-wide crossover that Iron Man is the main fucking character. I'll shoot myself. I can't take it anymore. Like Iron Man is the new Wolverine, and I can't stand it.
Before you go on, I just want to tell you that that's what they're trying to do with this all new.
Oh, I know.
They're pushing him as the forefront instead of like Wolverine or Spider-Man.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, it makes sense. You look at their movie properties; they can't really do Spider-Man. I mean, they can, but they don't have him fully. They can't do the X-Men, so it's got to be an Avenger. And well, Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark is the face of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so I get where they're coming from. Just in the comics, like comic Tony Stark is just he's so much of an asshole. It's not even like a love to hate him kind of thing. Like I get tired of reading him. Generally it's the way that Marvel has to make him, like they have to make him the hero and the original villain and everything. Like it has to be Tony Stark. It's his fault that this all happened, and so he has to redeem himself by being the one to save the fucking day. And it's like every single story is a Tony Stark story. It's like, okay, can you let somebody else do something once in a while? I wouldn't hate him as much if he didn't have to be the cause and the solution to every single problem.
Total fucking diva.
So
the ball again, Tony.
Yeah. But then they tell
it. Just kick him the fuck out of the Avengers if they were like, you know what? For the last 2.5 years, every week we've been doing nothing but cleaning up all of your fucking shit. Like, we wouldn't be needed as a team if it wasn't for all of your fuck ups.
Yeah, but
that basically sums up the fucking Avengers storyline in the comics.
Right? Nobody else has the resources or the authority anymore, though. Like Thor's Thor's acting, all Asgardian all the time and doesn't understand personal relationships. Steve Rogers is now an old man, so like, who else is going to do it? But then so in Axis it then switches viewpoints, and you get some of it told from Magneto's point of view, as a concentration camp survivor, and seeing this happen again, and then having to go recruit villains to do what the heroes can't. It's just very Magneto, and it's fantastic.
That was one of my favorite things about the Forever Evil series, is that you got a lot of the story told from the point of view of Lex Luthor. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of that, like, it really gave you a really neat contrast compared to what you're used to reading, and kind of it kept it interesting and intriguing.
And then you get some of the actual main Axis title told from Deadpool's point of view, as kind of a wild card, and like, it's not just his side series where you get his point of view in his own title, but they don't never really touch on it in the main series. You actually see him tell some of the story. And Deadpool, one of the coolest things happens to him, because he's like, kind of psychotic and messed up and chaotic and random, and now, like, his inversion, he turns into Zenpool, and he has this white costume, and he goes around like preaching peace and all this shit, and it's fucking fantastic, because like, it fits in the there's a lot of comics, like, and when I say comic, I mean like comical, like funny stuff that happens in his book that wouldn't necessarily work in the overall main universe, like in the mainstream comics titles, but this is one where it carries over, and not only is it funny, but it makes sense, and like, it's just really cool to see how you can have those elements mixed together, but then we get some heroes acting like jerks, and I'll have to see how the series finishes, but it started off really strong, and then it got kind of weak. I'm hoping it gets better, but
I'm curious to see what you've pitched a good story, almost to the point where I kind of want to pick it up and read it too. And I'm not a huge Marvel fan of most of the universe. I like the Hulk, but outside of that,
the Hulk's in it too. The Hulk. This was the stupidest part, and you'll hate this part.
Yeah, you're gonna lose me on it.
You start hugging people.
Never mind.
The Hulk has his own inversion, and because the Hulk at this point isn't. I wasn't reading Hulk solo series, so I don't know what happens, but like Doc Green, it's not Bruce Banner or something, or Doc Green is.
Yeah. He's like another version of Smart Hulk, basically.
Yeah, it's basically Smart Hulk.
So you get the Hulk's inversion is they refer to it as the Hulk's Hulk. Like Hulk hulks out and turns into something else, and they call him Clue or Claw or something, which is Hulk spelled backwards.
Have you ever read Fear Itself?
No, I didn't.
No.
If you look at the images, Fear Itself was a shit story. Basically some of the heroes.
It's badass looking, but it's like a smart Hulk, and at one point in Captain America: The Mighty Avengers, something happens, and he's like. Falcon tells him he can't do something, and he's like, you make Claw sad. He's like, you wouldn't like me when I'm sad, and it's like, wait, what? Oh, come on.
God.
But basically going around just beating everything up.
But yeah, it's a smart Hulk, like trashing all of the state of Arizona. Yeah. It's pretty awesome. So I mean, it's cool, but like the characterization, again, it's like the visualization and what they do is cool, but the personality on all the heroes that turn into villains is just so like cheesy. It's not well done.
So this past weekend, not to just completely change topics, but
change topics.
Yes, not to do it, but I'm going to do it. This past weekend was a big comic book convention in the Midwest, Derby City Comic Con, which is put on by Chuck Moore from comicrelated.com. They're one of our biggest supporters. They've been fantastic to us since the beginning of the podcast. They've been featuring our podcast on comicrelated.com for well over a year and a half now. So if you haven't checked out their website, there's tons of cool stuff. Lots of news and articles featuring smaller independent comics. They cover all kinds of comics, not just your mainstream stuff that we typically like to read. Here's a... There we go. Okay, Derby City Comic Con. A little poster action from it. But yeah, check it out, comicrelated.com. Chuck Moore, he's been on one of the podcasts. If you haven't heard it, it's a really long podcast. It was like 2.5 hours. Go back, listen to it. It's definitely great. I'm sure we're going to have him on again. We all had a fantastic time.
Fantastic.
He's inquired about coming back on the show, so I'm sure that he'll be a guest again sometime soon. We were supposed to originally go and record a podcast live from a table at the convention. Unfortunately, scheduling circumstances just kind of got in the way of that. So our apologies, first of all, to Chuck. Hopefully we can try and figure out a way to make that happen in the future. I'd love to do something kind of like what we do for Free Comic Book Day from the convention, because it would just be a very exciting atmosphere to podcast at. So I was not able to go. Pirate was not able to go. Brian lives way the hell far away. But Topher did make it to the Derby City Comic Con. What did you think?
I liked it. It was fun. Here's another print of like the promotional image for the con. It's pretty cool. Little jockey on horse action here. It was good. I enjoyed it. I've been to a bunch of different conventions around the area. This one was solid. I did run into Chuck at one point. I got to say hi. Didn't really get to say much more than hi.
I'm sure he was busy.
He was busy running a convention, but I did say hi. And here's a map of the exhibit hall. So like you can see there's a pretty decent number of booths and a list of all the different exhibitors here.
Oh,
So
wow.
kind of quite the list here. It was fun, and like conventions go, I spent way too much money there, and
all right,
but it was a lot of fun.
Stop flapping your gums and tell us about what you bought.
Oh Jesus! Okay,
just give us the overview.
Here.
You don't have to cover all 3,000 things.
I bought a bunch of like random, some figures. Okay, so I didn't know this was a thing, but I got a Diablo.
Shut the fuck up!
A Diablo figurine statue thing. Like this thing is sick. It supposedly has like 25 points of articulation.
Can you get the different character classes? Could you get a wizard or like a barbarian?
I think they have them just like they have, and we lost Chris.
Oh man, that sucks.
But I think they have some of them. Like they have a bunch of the World of Warcraft.
Yeah, I've seen those
ones, but I don't think the World of Warcraft are articulated. They also have what I saw at my local comic shop. The Heroes of the Storm game that just came out from Blizzard.
Yeah.
They have little mystery Funko boxes where you can get any like a random character in your box.
Oh, nice.
Those are pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm like I don't really care about the articulating thing because I'm more of a collecting stage.
Yeah,
of
you
my
like
life
to
now.
present them.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it in the case anyway, probably. So I look for something that looks nice but is in a box that is presentable when it comes to action figures. Now my statues, like my Kobutakaya Artifacts Hulk that I have that out of the box. Like I kept the box because the box is awesome, but it's just so badass like being out. Now I have some other like Marvel Selects action figure type stuff, the big action figures that I keep those in the box, but those look really good in the box too, so that's part of it for me. When I'm getting stuff like that, I want something that looks like it's going to be decent, as a display within the box still. So
like for me, I keep mine out of the box because I like to change all the weapons and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I get it.
When I clean them, I take a Q-tip, some water at times, and clean them, so I get all the dust everywhere out.
Okay.
And here's Chris.
And we're back.
Okay, so you got the Diablo figure. What else you got?
Yeah, and to answer the question, I think you were asking when my internet cut out. I don't know if they have I don't know. They had this one, and then they had if you've played Diablo 3, when you're fighting Diablo, you go into like a shade realm where there's like a dark version of him, and they had the dark version of him too. But it was just a booth there that sold a bunch of different figurines and collectibles. So I don't know what else is in the series because I didn't even know this was a thing. So if they make other ones, I don't know. But this one was badass, and I had to get
badass, it.
Yeah. Then I got a couple other random figurine stuff. I bought a Mr. Sinister action figure because I love Mr. Sinister.
Is that the one with the chest sparks out?
Yeah, the Power Light Black.
Yeah, I had him when I was a
kid. So I picked up that. My girlfriend's a huge Sin City fan, so she picked up Marv and Hardigan black and white action figures that are pretty cool looking. She also got some Batgirl comic statue, and she found so this one booth was selling a bunch of Star Wars stuff, and they had. Have you ever seen those Build-A-Bear places and the mall and random places? Like there was one that was a Star Wars Build-A-Bear, and she got a Jedi teddy bear, which is pretty fantastic.
That's awesome. That's a great idea.
It also came like they had it sitting in a glass case. And it was funny because I was looking through a long box and digging around for something, and I turn around and I see her, getting change back from some merchant on, across the aisle. And I walk over, I'm like, "What'd you buy?" And she points down to like this, glass case. She's like, "See that shelf down there?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "That shelf." I'm like, "Wait, what?" She's like, "Yeah, I bought everything on that shelf." It was like there were a couple of different lightsabers. There's actually, you can swap the costume out, like the boots and the robes and everything, and there's a second Darth Vader costume for it.
Nice.
That's awesome.
So that was pretty cool. And then I bought a bunch of random comic books. I found some old X-Men companion manual with like interviews with like Len Wein and Chris Claremont and stuff from like the old days. Found a couple key issues I was missing. Got some variant covers, like a Secret Wars variant, the North Star Wedding uncolored variant, the X-Men cover with Deadpool walking across the street. That's like awesome. The Abbey Road Beatles cover. I've been looking for this issue for like a year and a half now, so that was cool. I found that one. Then I got a few first appearances. X Factor number 5, which is the first Apocalypse. I got the first issue of Spawn, first appearance of Spawn, and the first appearance of Angela. And then I got this one, which was the first appearance of X-23.
All right.
Cool. Yeah. And then the other thing I got was a couple of art prints, and one of the artists who was there was
Bad
Bob
Case
Hall.
of Syphilis.
No,
okay.
Mr. Hall did not. I mean, I don't know if he had a bad case of syphilis, but I didn't ask.
Was it Bob, but you say it was Bob Hall?
Bob Hall, who we've had on this podcast before.
Yeah.
So I had an old issue of the Champions number 16, like it was an X-Men crossover, Magneto. And Beast, and so I had this sitting around. So I it was one he drew because he did the Champion series for Marvel way back when. So I had him sign that.
He probably did seeing that.
Yeah, I was like, I got an old one for you. He's like, oh wow. He was busy. He was also sitting there signing a bunch of books. He's like, yeah, somebody brought he's like asked me if I could sign some books for him, and I said sure. And he brought me like his entire collection. It was like a giant stack. He's like, I'm not doing this again. But he had prints there, so I got a Spider-Man that he did and autographed by him.
I have a Thor print autographed by him that I picked up at Lexington Comic-Con.
And then the other thing I got was I got a couple of prints from an artist named Nate Lovett, who I'm not super familiar with his stuff, but I'm gonna have to check out and see what else he does, because these are pretty badass. A Batgirl.
Oh, that's cool.
The new Batgirl design, and a second print from him of Spider-Gwen.
That's cool. kind of
they're
cartoony.
pretty nice. Yeah, I like them. They're they're a little cartoon, but like
it reminds me of a lot of like the 1990s cartoons kind of vibe.
A little bit, but you know, like while they're cartoony, they've got a lot of really nice, you know, lines and shadowing.
Detail,
like it's more depth than just like, you know, it kind of looks a little bit like cell shading, but like it's got way more depth than that. So yeah, these prints are really cool, and I really liked them. And I'll have to check out and see what else he does.
That's awesome. Cool. So it sounds like all together a good time was had. DerbyCityComicCon.com, ComicRelated.com. I'm pretty sure they're on Twitter, Facebook, all of the above. So make sure you guys check those out. I know Chuck would appreciate any support. And it's not a small website. ComicRelated.com, I was talking to him at one point. They get like, it's something crazy like over 1 million hits a week or a day. I mean, it's a pretty insanely high amount of traffic to that website. So if you haven't checked it out, you're doing it wrong. Check it out.
And if you find yourself in the Louisville area around this time next year, go check out Derby City Comic Con.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, on to the news. There's not that much due to the fact that we're just a few weeks out from the San Diego Comic Con, and a lot of people are kind of hoarding the announcements, kind of stockpiling them, if you will, and waiting for the panels there. So, but what we do have is some fairly interesting stuff. Jurassic World. I have not yet seen it. I want to go see this very badly, but it has overthrown the Avengers as the top grossing opening weekend film in history. It made over $500 million worldwide in its first weekend. It made $208.8 million in the United States alone. That is fucking insane. That is awesome.
Is a lot of money.
That is,
money.
You know, and I'm okay with Jurassic Park. If there's any movie that I'm all right with, like, fucking overthrowing a comic book movie as top earner, as long as it's not like fucking Twilight or 50 Shades of Grey or some shit like that, like, I'm all right with Jurassic Park pulling it down.
Let's be honest, their record, I'm totally with you on that, and I haven't seen it yet either, but I've heard it was good. Some friends of mine saw it like twice over the weekend.
Damn.
Yeah, so I've heard it was pretty good, and I'm totally going to see it because I love the hell out of some Jurassic Park. But let's be honest, like, it's not going to have the record for long, because we all know come December, Star Wars Episode 7 is
it's going to just smash it.
Everything.
Yeah, it's going to absolutely
not even going to be fair. That's going to be astronomical. I can't wait to see how high that number gets.
Yeah, it's going to be. I bet they do 700 million in the first weekend.
It's going to blow the waters, whatever number it is.
Yeah,
it's just going to be like.
Pretty much.
The director of the new the Gambit movie that's going to be coming out, starring
Channing
Tatum as Gambit. The director was announced. It's going to be Rupert Wyatt, who directed
Murdoch.
No, Rupert Wyatt. Who
Probably
directed.
He'll be executive producer.
Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Oh, okay.
So, I feel pretty good about that. I think that's a pretty strong credential to have under your belt.
Mutant learning to gain his powers while stripping to get money.
Yeah. God.
Damn dirty mutants.
Okay, Hellboy 3. Everybody knows Hellboy 3 is going to be coming out. Now, the interesting thing about this is that Ron Perlman, who plays Hellboy, has gone on record in interviews talking about the fact that they're considering possibly doing a crowdfunding campaign for this movie. I kind of have a problem with this. I'm not going to lie. I kind of have a problem with this because it's not like the other two movies did bad. The first one did $99 million in sales, and the second one did $160 million in sales. Now, granted, those aren't record-breaking numbers, but that's pretty decent. They both made money. They made a significant amount of money on both of those films. they're gonna ask the people that are gonna go pay to go see the movie to give them money to make the movie.
Well, you know why?
So you're
It's
essentially
because
paying twice to see the movie.
Well, unless are they doing like Kickstarter or
It's not.
some other kind of thing?
It hasn't nothing.
Because I mean, if there's,
they're just talking about it at this point.
I mean, if there are like rewards for pledging money, and like one of the base levels is get a free ticket to see the show, then maybe. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, the special effects budget on those movies can be ridiculous, and sometimes $100 million movie, making $100 million means you didn't even cover your.
These both made money from what I understand.
But the thing is, like, when you crowdfund, like, okay, I've seen crowdfunding get $1 million. Who's gonna crowdfund $100 million? Like, whatever they can crowdfund, I still have to think is gonna be a drop in the frickin' bucket compared to a movie budget.
Yeah, that's what I would.
How does that change anything?
Well, are they doing it because what's his name doesn't have time to do it right now because he's doing like Pacific Rim 2? I don't know if he's still doing a Justice League Dark movie.
Well,
Del Toro.
Perlman said, I wouldn't want to be involved in any crowdfunding. I don't think it's the fans' job to fund the movie. I think it's up to the people who do it professionally. I think it's the fans' job to sit back, buy popcorn and Coke, and watch the movie and enjoy it. So it does sound like he is also of the same train of thought that we are, that it doesn't really make sense to ask me to give you $25 to kick in on a crowdfunding campaign and then charge me another $10 to go see the movie. It just doesn't make sense to me because I'm not getting any kickback. That's the way that the movie industry works, is you put money up for the initial investment and then you get kickback based on that.
Yeah,
so,
I understand. I understand.
It's not like this is a startup either. It's the third movie.
I understand crowdfunding for like little indie film projects or something, or like a first-time filmmaker who can't get the money together to get a big name studio to give them a budget to start with. Like, I get that, but yeah, I gotta think all the people involved in this. Like, yeah, you have big name backers. You're going to be doing this for a studio. Mm-hmm. Like, it's going to make them money. And any amount of money that's sourced by crowdfunding, like, is not going to be enough to convince a major studio to give you some huge budget. So this is just like extra money in somebody's pocket on top of ticket prices, which
I don't leave a good taste in my mouth.
I don't get it.
So the last bit of news that we have this week, as I said earlier, San Diego Comic-Con coming up in a couple weeks here. There's some companies that are staying away from San Diego Comic-Con this year. Big companies, Sony, Paramount, and Marvel will all not be making appearances this year at San Diego Comic-Con. They say that it's not necessarily a jab at the comic convention. It's not, they don't have any problems, they say, but they say it's because they don't necessarily have any big news to announce.
Which is true, because...
Yeah, but I also see it as, even if they don't have big news to announce right now, just being there is promoting your products that you've already announced.
Well,
you don't have to announce...
Marvel has their big booth and shit, so... that's how they show that in that way.
Are they not even having a booth, or are they not like doing like a press conference?
I think they're not. I think they're not doing a press conference. They'll still have.
They're not doing a Hall H.
But still,
I mean, if they don't have a panel of news to announce, that's fine. But if they weren't there, period, that'd be a problem.
But why couldn't you have, like, for Marvel? Why couldn't you have a panel up there and promote the next Captain America movie?
They haven't, because they're all in the middle of filming, and they probably can't just cut the filming and bring everybody to Comic-Con.
You don't think that they could afford, in their massive ass budget, with all these movies that they've made, all these hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, that they could afford to stop for 2 days to bring 3 people out for 24 hours and have them
if it's like
I'm just
hindering the
saying.
time they need to get it
I'm
out
just
by,
saying.
probably not.
I'm just saying, if they wanted to do it, they could do it, like, without a doubt. Like, they have the power, they have the financial resources, they could make that shit happen in a fucking heartbeat. Like, clearly they don't either A, feel the need to promote this movie at that location because they've already feel that they've sold tickets to all those people, which they probably have, or B, they actually have some kind of something against doing shit at that convention. I don't know.
I don't think.
No, I mean,
Marvel always has the biggest panels.
If you've ever, I mean, if you've been to these conventions, like, there's always so much going on, and like scheduling a panel like that, you know, like I'm sure to have like some big exhibit hall and you know, like have the time for that, like. You know, one, I'm sure it costs money to present something like that. I don't know how much it is, but at San Diego Comic-Con, I'm guessing they charge a pretty penny for their panels. If they don't have anything worth announcing, like as a convention attendee, like I'd be okay with, you know, somebody not having a panel that, you know, like just to get up and say nothing. I mean, if they have nothing to say, like there are plenty of other things to do at that convention. Like I don't really have a problem with them not.
I guess, but you know that they could have like released a little bit of extra
they're
footage.
Self-important when they have nothing to say.
But I mean, you know that they could have gotten up there and like promoted Civil War, released a little bit of unseen footage, even if it's a 45-second clip, a minute-long clip of some unseen footage from Civil War. Like, there's no way that they couldn't have done that. I mean,
well,
taking up an entire exhibit hall. And people, all the convention attendees' time to have a panel to say how awesome you are and promote something that everybody, you know, is probably going to go see anyway, when you don't have any particular news to share, that to me sounds like a waste of people's time, and it sounds like a gimmick.
Also, they also like
There's a
they
smile.
also have New York Comic-Con coming in October. They could show something there. They only said they're not going to San Diego. New York is starting to get to the point where they're selling. I think they actually, New York oversold San Diego last year by a couple of thousand tickets.
I think the other part of it is too that there's one in Salt Lake that is like rapidly approaching the size of, if not larger than, San Diego Comic-Con in attendance wise. So some of it may, and I believe that's in the summertime. So it could be that they're gearing up to try and like change areas of focus. You know, like, hey, we've promoted our shit at San Diego for X number of years. Maybe we go hit this other big one that's presented, you know, a little further inland, a little further east, and see how that goes. So that could be, you know, that could be the game plan as well. I don't know.
There's a whole, well, also like what's coming, like Marvel's attached to Disney. What Disney product is coming out
Star
closer?
Wars?
Yeah, they could just be getting, hey, let's give it to Star Wars. There'll probably be a big promotion for Star Wars, and like they don't want Star Wars to overshadow Captain America.
That's true. I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. Like I said, San Diego Comic-Con coming up in a couple weeks. I'm sure we will be absolutely flooded with some news of some kind from some people to force down your throats in the following podcast. So make sure to stay tuned for that. But that's about it for this week. I'm Fox 2. We got Topher.
Damn it.
Yes. And the whole effing Brian.
There's no pirate for us to copy when we say
yeah.
Dang.
Like I had to come up with something original.
Straight left you speechless.
I know.
All right. We'll see you guys next week.